everyone, and welcome to the Legal Tech Hub product briefing. I'm Stephanie Wilkins, Director of Content, and I'm delighted to be here today with Ben Wightwick, the Chief Commercial Officer of Autologyx. Welcome, Ben.
Hi, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Excellent.
Great. A lot of our viewers have heard of Autologyx before. You're a workflow and process automation platform for legal and compliance. Could you give us a little bit of a background on yourself before we get into the demo today?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. So I have been with Autologyx for about 3.5 years. As Stephanie said, I'm the Chief Commercial Officer. In our organization, that means dog's body because there's not enough people to do everything. So I do all sorts of stuff, plus my day job. But also, so I've been here for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I spent 10 years at HiQ. Prior to that, I spent 10 years working inside of a law firm called CMS in London. So I've been on the buy side, sell side of the legal technology world for about 25 years.
So before we dive in, could you tell us just a brief overview of Autologyx and what it is that you're going to be focusing on today in the demo, and then we'll get things started.
Yeah, sure, no problems. So essentially, Autologyx, we streamline complex legal processes with intelligent automation. So we actually deliver a best-in-breed or best-in-class process automation platform. And with that, we are focused on a whole bunch of different things. So we have a bunch of generic capabilities that really are brought together to solve specific client problems. Those problems tend to be gnarly, complex in nature. They tend to be very focused in on the data side of things and the process side of things, no surprise there. And so really, we start to think about how our clients want to operate differently from before. So lots of manual workflows, lots of disparate systems. How can we effectively bring together and improve productivity, improve efficiency, and ultimately improve profitability? So we bring together and solve for a range of different sort of solutions for our clients, ranging from big projects like contract remediation and repapering, all the way down to matter intake and triage for in-house corporates. So we service both sides of the legal world, so corporate in-house and law firms. But we also have clients inside of financial services organizations, insurance, and the like. Typically, we're working with legal processes, but those legal processes could be operational in nature or practice specific.
If you're ready, then I would ask you to share your screen if you want to dive into the demo.
Sure, I will do that. Give me 2 seconds to get everything up and running. Let's make sure you can see everything.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Excellent. So the platform can do a whole bunch of different things. And so what we've got here is we've got a couple of different demo environments that I'll show you through. But really what I wanted to talk about is the two sides to our environment. You've got the builder side, the engineer side, the space where a legal ops professional or an innovation team or a KM professional will typically come in and start designing and building solutions and layering in across those solutions additional capabilities over time. And then we've got the user interface where the associates, the lawyers, the other business professionals will come into the technology and interact with it in some way, shape, or form. Our platform is SaaS-based, AWS hosted, so ultimately it means that our technology can be permissioned and structured in a way that allows our clients to have direct access, but allow their clients to have access too. So client portals kind of activity, kind of sort of solutions go hand in hand. What I wanted to talk about, first of all, is our deeply rooted data centricity. And so I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that underpin what we do and how we do it, and just a very quick sort of conceptual view. So we think about data in terms of structured sort of content and structured information. And then we start to bring those together, those individual tables together, to start looking at what the relationship might be around those things, and how do we scale the process that sits across the top. So in its most simple form, what we have is the ability to build and design tables of data of various sort of types of data. We've got individual documents, we've got checkboxes, we've got single selects, we've got date times. You can basically have a whole bunch of different types of data stored in the system. They're deeply typed throughout the platform to ensure data consistency and structured information in the right way so that we can interact with other third-party tools and build out other capabilities. We also have the ability to store and manage structured data, large volumes of structured data in JSON fields inside of the records that you wouldn't necessarily expose to the customer or the end user, but ultimately you might need it to migrate information, bring in data from a third-party extraction tool and the like. What we also then have have the ability to do is quickly and easily drag and drop those components that we've added. So negotiation completed, I can bring it onto the canvas, and that canvas then gets presented to the end user whenever they're looking at this particular table or this sort of view of the data. We can embed other products inside of here. So you can see here, we've got iManage here. So we can embed iManage inside of a record that's in context with the system in play, and you can start to see how other things get structured in terms of what that looks like. I have the ability to build and design intelligent forms. I'm not going to save this because if I break my own demo system, I'll cry. We've got the ability to build and design individual forms for capturing information. You might have a form for the team, a form for different divisions, a form for the client to capture information and bring that into the platform. I also have the ability to build and design, using our baked-in document automation capabilities, a document automation template tool. So ultimately what we've got here within Word is the ability to, wrong document always, there we go. We've got a little Word sidebar here, which allows me to take the same variables from within the data structure and embed it inside of the template. And so this is a new lease document here. So I'm just I can drag and drop things and move things around and add sort of various degrees of complexity into that. But ultimately what we're doing then is we're pinning the document templates against the data that we're structuring the information against, which means that we can process and automate those documents rather than have I need to create a new lease and have a blank form. It's using the underlying data that's stored in the record to drive that through. We also have a deeply rooted permission structure within the system. Security is a big focus for us in terms of what we do and how we do it. So you can build complex security layers and permission structures as you would expect. The interesting thing about this is then how do you bring those together to scale your processes? So all of those individual data points, and I think across the use case that I was demoing just then, which is a real estate portfolio use case, across the 9 different object classes in our platform, there's over 1,000 data points. Now, how can those 1,000 data points interact with each other? What can they do and how can they operate? So in here, we create a relational model. And in that relational model, I can start to add things in here. So I can go, right, I'm just going to add contract review onto documents. Ignore the fact it doesn't make any sense. And what we're doing is we're pinning them together. So if something happens down here, it might influence a piece of data or a process that's been programmed up here. And so what we can do then is tie that together. So you're not building one big sort of master database with 1,000 data points or 1,000 columns in it. What you're doing is you're building out those views of information, consolidating them, making them really discrete and really focused.
Sorry, seeing that visual diagram of the structure is really helpful. Thanks for showing that.
It's a simple drag and drop canvas, but actually just tying it together and creating those structures underpins the connectivity within the platform. So actually, and I'll show it in a second, we can show the individual matters that have been recorded against the individual properties and the individual properties against the individual portfolios. And so what that allows the end user to do is to almost see the relationships in the system live as it's cycling through the activities as you're going through. So what that allows us to do then is start to think about, okay, what do we need to do next? And how do we then start to do this? So what we've got here is what we call our sequencer. And so this is the second part. So if you think about the relational model and the data that I've just been talking about, the object class structures, the process engine, the sequencer, is what in front of you. And so what we've got here on the left-hand side is a whole bunch of actors, as you will. So I can update records, I can generate documents, I can create tasks and set tasks, and I can even go and look up within the system and run a separate sequence off the back of some triggers that might happen inside of this one. And so these actors, you can drag and drop onto the canvas and move them around and configure them. Each one's got its own triggers and actions. I can connect things through to other systems. But ultimately, this particular use case is a clause extraction use case that we built out for a proof of concept for a customer. And so we're connected into iManage. You can see the iManage logo there. So we're picking up a document from iManage based on some KM tags. We're bringing it into our system. We're actually then sending it to do some term extraction. We're not using a generative AI tool for this. We're using Zuva. So we're bringing Zuva into play. And then we're also then sending the output once it's gone through a review process into Latera Foundation. So ultimately what we're doing here is we're doing some clause or term extraction interaction, but we're connecting the three separate systems that we might need, or the fourth, including Autologyx, to then orchestrate that process, to then scale that process and productize it. So the connectivity, the integration piece is really important because no software platform's an island. So we want to make sure that actually how you interact with other technologies, whether it be ingesting data, moving data into things, reading it, moving, whatever, is all very simply done and programmed and structured. One of the things that this technology allows our customers to do is to be infinitely flexible with that kind of activity. So I think I said earlier on that our platform is API first. We have what we call an API actor inside of the system, which allows us to create custom integrations. If we wanted to, we can write custom into our own technology and our own services if we wanted to. So it isn't just, oh, we've got an iManage actor and we can embed that in. If it was NetDocs or SharePoint, or if it wasn't Zuva and it was Kira or Luminance, or if it wasn't Litera Foundation, it was another repository of expert data, we can connect to those things and drive those kind of productivity gains and drive them through.
No software platform is an island. I like that. It's a good quote.
It is a good quote. And I think I stole it from somebody else. You can credit me if you like, it's fine. But I think one of the things that we've seen over the last 2 years, and I've just jumped into another sequence here, and this is for a completely different purpose. And it looks quite overbearing, but actually it's quite simple in what it's doing. And essentially this is a sequence that's leveraging new capability that is due out at the end of February 2025. So now-ish, that's been in beta with our customers for about 3 months. And so what this allows us to do is to connect existing processes and existing functions like an email intake and triage tool for an in-house or corporate in-house legal team, or a matter management for a particular practice area, maybe a real estate team that's sort of got an inbox that's capturing information and doing other bits and pieces. We've got some connectivity into some tooling that allows our customers to integrate generative AI into their processes. So we've got a new agent here called the email intake AI agent, because everything's got to have an AI in it, and agent, why not? Everyone's using agents for things. I call these task monkeys. There's a task monkey. If it knows what it needs to do, it's been pre-programmed, it's going to do it every time it gets prodded. It's going off and doing a particular action. So we're connected to a Microsoft 365 mailbox. We are bringing into our system, every time a new email hits that inbox, we're bringing in the from, the to, the subject line, the CC, BCC, whatever it might be. We're bringing in the body, we're bringing in the attachments, and we can then programmatically do things with that. And so we could connect it up to GPT. And so we've got a specific auth object using out-of-the-box capabilities to integrate with tools. And we've got a prompt and the context. Ultimately, this is standardized. So this is going to happen. And this is the same prompt and the same context for every email that comes into the inbox. And what it's going to return a whole bunch of data. It's going to return the classification of the email, the urgency, the summary. If there's an attachment, it's going to go off and it's going to go, tell me what type of contract it is, or tell me what type of thing it is, and then return that information as structured data so that we can do some interesting things with it. Now, one of those things could be send an email to somebody. Not that I'm saying we should be sending more emails, but send an email. We received an email, so we're going to generate another email. But one of the things you could do is you could send an email to somebody and say, we've received this, go and do X, Y, Z. One of the other things we could do is we could generate a task. And so I could drag a task onto the system, connect the two elements together, and then I can say when something is completed, click on save, go and review this request. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding an extra dimension to this workflow by creating a task for somebody, and I would assign them to, I would use the task assignment actor after this. I would assign it to a group of people or an individual to say, based on what we've found from this email, there's a type of contract, there's a type of work, or there's a thing. So the system is triaging that process for you. And so it's bringing all of that capability together. So we can use out of the box standard process automation tooling, task management, document automation, et cetera, we can then layer in the transformative power of generative AI to then start layering those and informing those kind of requests and processes that go around it. So that's a big part of how we see the technology coming along in terms of how people are evolving and using these things. One of the things that we see a lot is we're like firms, corporates, they're using Copilot or they're using GPT or they've got a chat interface to the platform. Ultimately, the modality of that is the end user needs to still go and do stuff. What we're trying to do is we're trying to embed the capability into processes so that the end user gets the outputs to review something or to do something. They've not asked it to do it, but the system knows at this point it should go and do these activities to then go and see something else. And so that's a big part of how we're thinking about the use of AI within the technology. It isn't to become an AI company, but it's about how can we augment existing process engines, automation capabilities that have existed for years and drive further efficiency and productivity gains through the tool.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, we try. There's a lot of noise out there. And there's a lot of technologies out there that are doing amazing things. We see that step as how do you drive standardization and adoption of technologies that are going to be inside of your environment? But how do you govern them and how do you control them? So ultimately, our system, because we're deeply typed around data and structure, we're tracking and auditing everything. So we can tell you how many tokens you've used and how many elements you've connected and all that sort of stuff, the different models in different regions, different users, different actors, et cetera, et cetera. So what that allows you to do then is to map a really careful picture around from regulation isn't coming soon, but regulation is coming around the adoption and usage of these technologies. And we're seeing those kind of tooling, or that kind of tooling that's inherently baked in our platform in the way that we operate to be a key part of what happens next. So there's a whole bunch of capability, because I could talk for about 20 years about the engineer world. What can somebody build? What does it look like? There's more stuff than I could shake a big stick at, quite frankly, to talk through. Very quickly, from the end user side, what can that interface look like? So we've got the idea that you can build out landing pages and dashboards, either for different use cases in the same technology or for the same use case in the same instance. So we've got different views of the same structure. So I've got an analyst dashboard. The data's empty at the moment, but the different phases of a remediation project might be that you've got QCs, QAs, analysts, the client can see stuff as well. How does that all get orchestrated and administered? They've got different roles, they've got different permissions. But ultimately, you could also have a landing page that tracks your in-house legal team, all the activity that you're doing. It could mean that you've got self-service tooling around NDAs or other contract types that you might want to provide to your end users within the business. How do you submit a consultation request? All of those things are being tracked and audited within the dashboarding capability. But ultimately, what it allows us to do is to create suites of solutions. This is a real estate portfolio. So this isn't just tracking the fact that a client or a number of clients have got collections of portfolios of properties, predominantly in North Americas, but actually, what does that mean for the lawyer? Okay, so I'm in here, the client might see some of this, the end user might see elements of it, but actually, what is it that I can see? What can I do? And these are the screens that I showed very briefly that you can drag and drop to create the screens of the data that you're trying to present. And so the idea here is that actually our customers get to see certain views of data, certain input things. I can go in and I can change this from vacant no to yes. That might have triggered a whole new workflow because we've just received notification of it, or we might have received a report from a customer or something like that, and it might have imported those values and gone through. If I jump into the individual record, so this is a matter for the property that I was just in, and there's always something that goes wrong when I try and look at iManage, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that we can connect iManage in to the environment. I can look at the related contacts. So our relational data model is being put in place. And ultimately what this is about, it's managing the downstream work. So this isn't about presenting a portfolio of data, the lawyers or the client. This is about showing how do we use the technology to manage the downstream work from the portfolio. So it isn't just matter management, it's providing that sort of hybrid view of this is our portfolio. And actually, here's all the matters that we're managing. Here's all the constructs of that. And so we've got things like document viewers in the platform. We've got the ability to manage and track tasks, individual templates. I've got the activity log for the underlying record. I can record who's accessing it. So there's a whole bunch of capability here that is all customizable depending on the use case that you're looking at and the structure that you're focused in on. And I can create, as I said, those landing pages of information. If I jump into the visa application tool, it's using the same underlying technology, but it's just presenting different types of data to different people in a slightly different way. I can manage filters and track things. I can say how many approved applications have I had this quarter. I can export this for reporting purposes. I could generate a whole suite of reports that are going to be created as part of our document automation. On the other side of it is I can create, we've got a data warehouse tool that sits on the side of our platform that every customer gets access to, which tracks not just the history, but the live state of the data so that you can do up to the minute Power BI, Tableau reporting or MI reporting on the reports and structure and function of the practice that you're using the technology against. There's a whole bunch of tooling and capability that sits around that.
I love enthusiasm about a product. So what we'll do for the viewers is that we'll put a URL at the bottom of the screen so people can reach out to Ben and the Autologyx team if they want to learn more. Thank you. That was a great demo. It was really great to see it in real life.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.